Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Where Is Your Heart? It's Torian. Of course, we have the Royce checking in with everybody. We appreciate everybody tuning in, all the listeners, all the supporters that we have for the show. So, as you are watching right now, please make sure that you share with your groups, that you share this with anybody who you think needs to or wants to hear a heartfelt conversation that champions vulnerability as a core human
Mhm.
strength. Make sure you share not only on Facebook, but on YouTube, all the different mediums that you're on. And yeah, man, that's enough for the Torian commercial that I do every time. How's everything going?
Good, man. I'm like, oh, there's a whole bunch of fun stuff. Sarah turns 40 on Friday. So like my life right now is trying to get stuff ready for that.
Uh-huh.
Cause I mean if you're gonna turn 40, you gotta have some fun with it. But
Yes.
also it's COVID. So like how do we do this?
Well, you have COVID
Um
fun. I don't know what that means,
yeah,
but
I don't know what that means either. So we're figuring it out. Um
yeah, man.
All right, so we're gonna do something fun today. We didn't call this one Talkback Live. We called it Faith. I didn't know that. This is fun.
See, this is sorry about that. Yes, my
So I
bad.
knew
See,
we were gonna talk about. No, it's not. I knew we were gonna talk about faith, but I gotta. So I'm adding the link, y'all, to so that you can actually join us on the air. I'm posting it on Facebook. Um, on the air. Um, so that's going to be on our it's on my personal page now. It's going to be up on our Where's Your Heart page in a second in the comments, so be sure to click on that and jump in. You'll join us right here on the screen from a phone or whatever you want to do. um how do I even leave comments on here? Where are you streaming this thing today?
these are typical channels, bro. Typical channels, man. The five that we normally use. So where's this
Awesome.
person? Where's this person asking? Where should they can't post comments?
uh no, I'm just saying I right in the comments there. There's the link to the StreamYard, which
Ah,
is our
okay.
broadcasting thing that's real specific. This is what happens when I try to type and navigate an electronic machine while we're on the
Production
air.
as you go is not easy. It is not easy.
But that's um, that's the link, so you can actually join us live in the studio here with your questions. The topic today, we we're doing something fun that we'll talk about in a bit, but please also feel free to refer to other stuff that we've talked about. Um, okay, so I'm going to add
Yeah,
this too on our YouTube page. So there you go. You got
let's make
lots
sure we do that.
of jump in there. Uh,
Yeah, we want to make sure everybody jumps in, get an opportunity to reach out and share where's your heart with any conversation that we're having.
yeah,
Yeah, we look forward to it. Just come on in. It should be an easy process. And if you're tuning in, you probably know that we're welcoming guys. So we appreciate you checking us out and checking in with not
yeah,
only us but the rest of the Where's Your Heart family.
yeah.
Yeah, man. So you know how we like to start off and just
Gratitude.
gratitude, man. What are we grateful for? You know, I didn't even think this through this time, so this is definitely on the cuff. This is a gratitude freestyle. Um, I spent some time with extended family a little bit this weekend, so that was really nice to be able to just get a chance to get to know people in a different setting with
Yeah,
some of their friends and stuff like that. So that's really good. Um, I think for me, it's kind of ties into what I said, but it's just really being cautious of where our energy is going, but and
mhm,
also learning how to be still. So for me, over the past 7 days, I had to be very cognizant of when and where to take a few moments just to be still with everything that's going on. I mean, of course, you know everything that we talk about on the show,
yeah,
um, but then just regular, day to day circumstances that come out outside of everything else that's been happening socially, and just being intentional around it. So I did that, and it helped. It really helped to just kind of listen, be a little bit more centered, and a little bit more focused. So the
yeah.
ability to sit still. That is what I'm grateful for. It's my gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
No, I'm right there with that. It's really hard for me to not hear that, or to hear that and not immediately jump to that notion in the Bible of be still and know that I am God.
Mm.
Like, I'm an atheist, yes, and there's still something very powerful about being totally present,
Mhm.
being still and knowing that there are things that are bigger than me, that are beyond me.
Mhm.
Because I think that's, a lot of people think atheism is about, well, anyway, we'll get to that anyway, but that's
Yes, we will.
there's a bunch there. Okay. And yeah, for my gratitude this week, I'm really grateful to get to celebrate Sarah's birthday. I'm grateful that, well, I'm working on a project. She's probably watching this, so I can't give this away. But I'll share it next week. That'll be fun. But I'm actually making something for her that I'm really excited about. And I'm grateful for the capacity to do that. I'm doing woodworking,
Mhm.
and but it's also, like, it's also really humbling because I haven't done this work in a while. So,
Yeah.
like, right before I stopped to take a shower earlier today, I had just fucked up an end of the thing and, like, gone, oh no, like, this whole chunk of wood that I needed in a certain place is no longer in its place.
Yeah.
So, and trying to figure that out. And so grateful for the flexibility, grateful for the chance to step away,
Mhm.
grateful for the chance to get to dive into a project like that and get my ass kicked by it. There's something fun about doing things that push me,
Mm.
that make me realize how much else there is. You know what I mean?
But yeah, I do. I do. It's
Like,
just we're pushing our limits. Like we're brushing up against our limits.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's for, at least for me, when I get to a place where I become comfortable and it's like, hey, I got this. Then you get to the end of that piece of wood and it's like, no, no, you don't. You can always be, a little bit better, a little bit sharper, listen a
Oh
lot
God.
better, things of that nature.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
So people are chiming in. Brian James says, I thought Pi was on. What's that?
oh, that's right. So this is from my F3 brothers, man. So
Oh, sweet.
we were supposed to have my man Pi. That's his F3 name, and but we had to postpone that, and I guess we didn't say that. But they knew from the nation. So basically, we were gonna have him on, but because we had some technical difficulties, we couldn't get the advertising out for the show. So we're gonna circle back to that, Brian. So sorry I didn't update everybody on that one, but that's what happened.
Yep. And
Yeah,
we
we got
got,
Penny chiming in saying good
yep.
vibes. What's up, Penny? Thank you for tuning in.
We got Mark and LG also
Oh, Mark,
jumping in there.
that's right. That's another one of my F3 brothers, man. So that's why they call me
Nice.
Carmen San Diego. So that's why they say good afternoon, Carmen.
I mean, you are a globetrotter.
Yeah,
This works.
yeah. Got my brother Gerard tuning in, man. It's a
Yep.
family right there,
And
Susan
Susan.
checking
I,
in.
I'm just like, I'm picturing what her day is like knowing that she was a guest a few weeks ago, knowing that she's a teacher, and like, and what the timing is on this.
Hmm.
And I know the life of a teacher. Like, you
Oh
work
yeah,
long, like, it's always hours beyond the school day before. So thanks for making the time to tune in, as always,
absolutely,
Susan.
absolutely. Then
And
we got
Janine.
Janine
Yep.
chiming in too, saying, "Hey guys,
Yep.
what's up, Janine?"
She's here. I love it.
Yeah, man, it's good stuff.
So, a reminder, folks, share the stream. I drink a lot. Yes, Susan. All right. That's fair. Um uh share the stream, and today we're doing kind of a talkback format. So the link to jump in the studio with us and actually ask a question live on camera, and if there's nuances that we don't like really get into with you get to, yeah, talk back. That's what
Yeah,
it's about.
yeah.
So
Talk back.
click that link, it'll put you in a green room, and then Torian will bring you up on the screen with us. Yeah, so lots there.
So last week now, man, it's been
Last week now.
we talked about what we were grateful for over the
Yeah.
past week. There's been a lot that's been happening as well. We talked a little bit about the fact that the coastline of California,
Yeah.
it's pretty much, well, not even California, really. You say the whole West Coast
Yeah.
is on fire, and of course, we're just showing up as human beings, understanding what that means for people, for families that are there.
Yeah.
You know, think about children and the uncertainty and kind of being uprooted on top of everything that's happened in 2020. So we're really being thoughtful and mindful as we think about those
Yeah.
people that we have out that way.
My parents are actually in the northern valley out in California,
Hmm.
on the north end of it. So they've got a fire about an hour uh, due west. That's
Hmm.
well, last time I checked, it was like 800,000 acres, and then they've got a fire about 30 minutes southeast. That's another big one. Like right now on the West Coast, to give people a picture of the scope of what's happening and why it is a historic event, you've got 5 of the 10 biggest fires ever burning right now in on the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, and California. Um, and it's like that's terrifying. You've got entire states that have air quality that, I mean, the air quality indexes that should never be over 150 are coming in at 700, like to
Mm.
the point that you can't even like say how bad it is for you. We're
Yeah.
talking about air quality
Yeah.
similar to that of ground zero,
Wow.
when the towers fell. Like it's that kind of level of toxicity. And this is just entire regions that are blanketed with this. So I talked with my coach today, and she said this is the first time she's seen the sun. She's out in the Bay Area in
Hmm.
California.
Hmm.
First time she's seen the sun in 2 weeks.
That's a
Like
powerful
it's
statement.
been that hazy, that level of haze and smoke. So yeah, Sarah's taken to calling this year the year of the plagues, and she's just like, I'm I'm not sure she's wrong, but yeah, that's the that feels like last week now. On top of the fact that we still have protests going on, we
Yeah.
still have police shootings,
Yeah.
police brutality that we have to talk about. This shit is still happening.
Yeah.
I mean, thank God it's still making headlines with everything going on, and as long we're talking 100+ days of protests at this point.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, like what do we do with this, and how do we hold the space for each other to, as you mentioned, to be gentle with each other, to be present for each other when we are pushed and broken so many different ways. um yeah, that's
Well, I don't think we're doing a very collectively. I don't think we're doing a very good job of it. I
that's
mean,
fair.
in my opinion, it's hard, man. I mean, it ties back to our topic for today as well, which is faith and like what do like I wanted to put belief or our beliefs, but that's what faith is essentially. It's what do we believe? Like what do we believe to be true? So um, it's hard right now because everyone in their own way, shape, or form, I guess even for us or for me, has become a fundamentalist. And
Mm,
whatever their fundamentals are, right? It's like, you know what? I'm going to go back to the very core of the absoluteness of what this is supposed to be. So, to poke fun at us or myself, it's, hey, everything should be about love and at the center and finding the common ground, right? And
yeah.
you know, that's the core of everything. And so I'm not judging anyone else's. I'm just saying that I've done the same thing, I guess,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know, but I just, yeah, we have to do a better job. And we talk about courageous vulnerability. And at the core of it, for me, and how I'm articulating and how I'm attempting to write about it is really pushing beyond those things, and it's kind of circling back and saying, hey, do I still believe this? But not only do I, but why do I still believe it? What new experiences and what new information have I gathered to further confirm and or ask bigger or better questions,
Yeah.
and or calibrate these things that I believe? And we as humans have to do I think a better job of doing that. So I try to model it, but yeah, that's kind of where I am, man.
There's something important there too, because so
Mm.
Sarah's got a couple of comments there, but the second one, the trying to be gentle, but it's hard when everyday life requires so many compromises. And it's absolutely true. um that our ability to compromise is compromised, when we're under pressure from so many different directions. So it's a huge challenge. And say we have another Twitch listener down there, Benjamin Chode.
Hey.
Now I'm curious about the name, but that's okay. Hello, friends. Good to see you, man. So yeah, we're on Twitch too. Those of you who like that platform, we stream to a bunch of different platforms. So get out there and enjoy.
Check us out. Check us out.
So this topic today came up because Sarah, for her birthday, said, "I'd like to not have to preach." Oh, Benjamin corrected me. Nice, good catch, man. It said Cho Day. There you go. Awesome. Benjamin Cho Day. Thank you. Thanks for that correction, man.
Appreciate that.
Nothing worse than having somebody fuck up your name on the air. So thank you for correcting.
Yeah, we appreciate that kind of feedback.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. We have everything in real time here. So yeah, jump in, people. So anyway, so Sarah was like, for my birthday, I'd really like to not have to preach this Sunday. So I was like, I haven't done a sermon since I left ministry like 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. So okay, what would that look like? Because I've debated it a lot, because I always help her prepare sermons still, because I still have all the knowledge from that stuff. I just have a different perspective on what it means. So I've wanted to try it for a while, and I was like, yeah, I should do this. But then I'm like, but what would really be fun is to say, hey, Torian, will you record the sermon with me? And we'll give, because her congregation is doing the online thing for their worship service. So that's a long way around to say that's how our topic came up. Because Torian and I are going to record a sermon for her congregation for Sunday.
In the middle of this week, we're going to do that. So it's going to be interesting. So I grew up in the church. And so I'm very familiar with sermons and not that I've given my own, but just, and, being on the receiving end of it. So it's interesting that this, not only will it be my first, but it'll be my first virtual. So this will be interesting for me.
Nice.
Yeah, man. but the ultimate question when it came down to this was, in our conversation, how this whole day came about is, you've done all these things, you've gone to seminary, right? And you are now an atheist. And so my question to you would be, this is how it all came about. So the question is, how do we give a sermon when you're an atheist?
Okay, so there's a bunch there. First off, yes,
it's gonna be fun. That's right.
There's lots here. I'm praying hard leading up. And I don't want to skip over. We got another person chiming in from Twitch. Happiness is bliss. Yes.
Oh yes,
hilarious. So first off, there are a lot of former pastors who end up becoming coming out as this, and it's a really interesting phenomenon. Some folks have actually looked at it from a psychological standpoint. There's a large contingent of those of us who go into ministry who don't do it for reasons that are exactly healthy. And so there's some interesting dynamics there. There are a lot of people who are about the attention. It can be very narcissistic. And
I never thought about that.
So there's a lot of different bits about, and not that all ministers are narcissists by any means. There's a lot of wonderful, really amazing people who are still my friends. You'll meet them on here, people that I still bring on. Last week, it was Michelle. A few weeks ago, it was Sunny. Just incredible people that I still love and are still. And so here's Sunny chiming in. Would that be considered a sermon though, or just a guest speaker, being that you're now an atheist? It's a good question. I'd go with eye of the beholder there, but it becomes a topic really of, first off, I'm not responsible for how people are going to interpret what we say. And that was something I had to make peace with when I was still a minister. That my job is to prepare faithfully. And that's still what I'm doing for Sunday.
Okay.
For our time is to prepare faithfully. I'm reading the texts. I'm remembering all the context that go along with it, all the book learning shit that I spent 4 years of my life, getting my ass kicked by. But then I'm also asking the question, so what do I make of this? What's my experience of this text? What does it have to say to me? Well, none of those things declare that God is the only thing that this has to say. And so atheism is just the notion that I'm not a theist, but that doesn't mean that I don't believe in stuff that's bigger than me.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never researched it or thought about it, but I've never heard a textbook definition of an atheist outside of something that you can Google. So you're saying that you can believe in something
You
larger
should
than.
actually Google it. But I mean, my interpretation of it is I just don't believe in God. Like, I don't think there's a God. I do believe that humans are fucking magical. Like, we do some pretty amazing stuff. We are deeply connected in ways that I don't think science has really like put forward yet. All right, we're getting some fun
Yeah, I know
comments.
we're getting some really good comments, actually.
No, we're not pastors. I used to be. Yeah, oh, thanks, Sarah. This is my spouse, everyone. She's.
Then we got devil worshiper. Oh,
No, I'm not a devil worshiper,
oh.
but anyway, yeah, he gets it. He's Benjamin's on there. All right, so anyway, let's actually look up what is a textbook term? Okay, a person who disbelieves or lacks belief in the existence of God or gods. And it's
Okay.
the notion that there's something bigger than us that's like either pulling the strings or created us and then like sent us on our way. Like, there are number of ways of constructing theistic beliefs. I just don't buy it. But
Okay.
that doesn't mean that I don't think that there are larger forces than I understand at work.
Okay, so let's peel this back a little bit.
Okay.
I always like to get to I like to level set when we have conversations like this. So when you say God, and that textbook definition said gods in plural.
Yep, God or gods.
Then what's your definition of God, and then what's your definition of gods for you?
So that whole thing was interesting. Oh God, we've got some comments.
Oh, you read those
here.
comments?
We're gonna have to address these.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is Sunny.
Yep.
Right. Yes, I agree that God can speak to anyone. Just wondering on label of the talk, but the dictionary says that a sermon can be a talk on a moral topic. Okay. And then Sarah's comment.
This is so true. Like, checking out her TikTok feed hurts my soul, and I like want to rage. But because she's doing a lot of this work on TikTok right now, and it's this crazy shit that she gets called constantly, and it's stuff that I've never been called these things. And I was preaching the dissolution of the big white guy with a fuck off beard in the sky. I was preaching an end to that for years. Like, that's total bullshit. It always has been. It just is not a functional thing that works. Even toward the end of my ministry, I was killing that constantly with congregations that I worked with, and moving toward a notion of the body of Christ, that we are connected.
But let's get to your definition, though.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're embedding in your explanation right now, because everyone has their perception or vision of God or gods based on learned experiences up until this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm talking about this in this book around courageous vulnerability, and how do you kind of press up against that stuff. So what are yours, so we can level set? Because if we don't level set, and people can either say, oh, his definition of these things is crazy and I don't want to hear what he has to say anymore, and it becomes triggering, which for a lot of people it will be, or they're empathetic and they can say, hey, I don't agree, but at least let me try to meet him where he is. Or people agree, at least we know we're on the same page. So what's your definition?
The notion that there is a being, or that there are beings who are superhuman, so to speak, or like divine, or more divine than we are. Like, I think there's a variety of notions of what this God thing is that are all like that I want to acknowledge. They're all ways of thinking about this God topic. And that everything from trickster deities in First Peoples, Indigenous Peoples religions to Hinduism, to the ones that we know of in this country, Muslim, Christian, and the Abrahamic traditions and Judaism. So like this notion, but they often all revolve around these notions of superhumans, and there's something fundamentally compelling about that, and I get that, but I think it mistakes these things. One of the ways that the Catholic Church used to shut down people, especially women, was by sainting them. If you became
Tell me
too
more.
exceptional, if you became too much of a thing that people talked about, they would saint you to remove you from humanity, separate you, and say, don't try, yes, we want to try to be like them, but we don't actually want to be them. And it's a
And so
way of
would they kill these people? I mean, I'm
no,
being literal right now.
no.
So say it's like Saint John. I'm just making John X.
Yep.
And so they would say, okay, this person is influential. They're moving their way up.
They're
through
too
the church.
powerful.
They're too powerful. So now we're gonna kill you off and then just make you a martyr, like Tupac
No,
of the era or something. I mean, I'm trying to be
no.
funny, but seriously.
I mean, sometimes they did, but the way they used sainthood sometimes, and this wasn't all the time, sometimes it was genuinely just a way of recognizing what somebody did. Of course, like any organization, these things are abused. And one of the ways that they were often, one of the common abuses was to saint somebody that they didn't want people emulating too much. Because when you sainted somebody, you removed them, you set them apart. And so the notion that this was actually a way of shutting down someone's power because people couldn't try too hard to be like St. Francis because the stories made him fantastical.
Okay.
And that's what often we do with religion, is it with God, with the notion of God or gods, is they become more than we can be and therefore more than we should be. And instead, I was here even before I stopped being a minister. I'm much more interested in us being the fucking magical beings that we already are. Yeah, when we tell the story, I told my coach the story of how you and I met today, and it was just like the magic of what happened. And that's not magic. It's just simply that we are human animals who are designed for connection, who deeply desire to be in relationship and good relationship. That we as men did something fundamentally, well, as far as our culture is concerned, fundamentally fucked up by being vulnerable with each other.
Mm.
And the second that connection happened, that, and again, one day maybe science will be able to tell us, well, this is the neurons that we're firing, and these are the chemicals that we're going, and all that shit. I don't know. But there's something beyond words there that is really special and is sacred to me. Is that God? No, I don't think so. I think it's all just chemicals and shit we haven't figured out yet. We can't explain yet. I'm fine with that. My issue is that we have to be there all the time, and it takes a lot of effort to do that, especially in a society like ours.
So let me play the antagonist here.
Yeah.
So where does this?
Oh God, Yale's calling me out.
Who's calling you out?
Well, like there's a bunch of me.
Oh, he said you just don't like the term God.
That's true. It's too small a term for who we actually are.
And I got my boy Saul. He's in the other room actually, so I know he's listening.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, how do you? Anyway, so get to your definition, so then we can kind of back into this, because there's a lot of people that hear this that don't get it. I understand where you're coming from, right? So I am, if someone wants to put me in a box, who's hearing this, which I don't like boxes, but it's okay. I would say I'm agnostic. Like, I am comfortable with saying I don't know. I don't know if it's one thing, if it's multiple things, if it's science, if we're in this huge algorithm, if we're avatars, if there's some version in between. I don't know. I really don't. Now, in my experience, it's been hard to really believe in what I was conditioned to believe in, because I've actually been to the birthplace of Buddha when I was in Nepal and Lumbini, and spent a lot of time there. I've actually been to parts of Jerusalem and parts of the Holy Land, and to parts of the Islamic faith, and then going to India to the Golden Temple. So I purposely
Mm,
tried to put myself in like these spiritual homes,
yeah.
and it all felt good. Um, it pretty much all felt that there was a feeling or a sense that was there, but it wasn't like this absolute truth, like their version of it was the only right one for me.
And
And that's what I'm like. Ugh. And so if people
yes.
can only talk about what they know or what they've had access to, and they continue to confirm it, pretty much what's happening in society right now with news and media and everything. But this is what the conditioning is around religion. And all you do is say, okay, here's the truth, or here's our version of the truth. Now let
Yep.
me continue to reaffirm it through song, through this, through that, through this, through this.
Yeah.
Then how can you even have any context for anything else? It's like you have this wonderful car, you have this great Honda Accord, and it's a great car and it lasts forever, and repairs are cheap or whatever, and you're
And
adamant.
mods are awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And you can throw all your stuff on there, you personalize it, you make it yours, right? Your little sect. And then you say, this is the best car in the world, and it's the only car in the world that operates that way,
Yeah.
you know? And but how would you know if you haven't driven anything else? I mean, I know that's a basic analogy, but to me it's almost the same thing. So when people start becoming so adamant about the truth, and they don't have any other like physical frame of reference outside of what they were taught to believe, I kind of get lost in that conversation. Not kind of, I do get lost in that conversation. So
Sorry, my camera's going nuts here,
that's
so
okay. Sorry, I figured as
we're
much.
gonna see if we can.
Yeah, and so that's why in your definition and how you're
Yeah.
describing it, I'm actually asking for your definition because
I
I don't know.
I mean, the notion that there is a being or beings who are somehow responsible for this stuff, other than us, other than humanity, other than people that we can touch and like that are real and
Mhm.
connected the way you and I are connected, even though we're thousands of miles apart right now, right? The notion that there's some being that we can't see, or a set of beings, I don't. There's nothing. No, sorry.
I hear you. I'm with you. I'm not saying I 100% agree. So the way I
Yeah.
look at it is,
TL, he's not
what did
wrong.
you say?
my
Talk to our
my
guy and they blacked you out.
EPUB camera. Yeah, my stupid USB does not stay connected.
Well, but
Anyway,
even the choice of words, right? You can say
yeah.
Jehovah, Yahweh, God, Allah, same meaning,
Oh,
different,
the
right?
Muslim faith celebrates beads that, or I think it's Muslim faith if I remember correctly. 99 names for God.
Right. And so that's limited to our lexicon and the language that we speak. And that's just one slither of it. So
Yeah.
you have these different things that are there. And so the way I look at it is this way, is that for us to even believe that as human beings, we are the center of everything, I think it's very egotistical as a human race,
Yep.
right? But since that is the figure that we understand the most, because that's what we come from, we've kind of projected God into
Yeah.
ourselves into God, right? Through different beings. And then you start to get the use of that through belief and control. And then it just all goes haywire. And that's where I really get lost. And so
Turns out we anthropomorphize stuff constantly. We
always.
do it to animals, we do it to gods, we do it to all sorts of shit. Yeah.
And so the way I look at it is it's just beyond what we can conceive. So there could be one entity or multiple, or it could be the program or aliens or check the box. We just can't conceive it beyond how we think. Much like a trying to get an ant to conceive Earth may be difficult. I don't know.
It I mean it's hard because we don't have any other comparison points other than the human animal, because
Hmm.
there are things about the human well, like many life forms on this planet that are absolutely unique.
Right.
Um and we're getting to the point with science where we can see the parts of the brain that light up when somebody's having a spiritual experience.
Yep.
And it's the same part of the brain that might light up. Well, I know lit up for me the day you and I met. That was a spiritual experience.
Hmm.
Uh, it's the same part of me that that lit up when I was at certain temples when we were in Japan, where
Hmm.
I was just like in a magical space. Like, and I'm not saying actually magical. I'm just saying like really deeply meaningful. It's the same part of the brain that lights up anytime there's that kind of activity going on. So it's it's not actually unique to religious experiences, are not really unique to religion. They're subjective experiences that happen in our own body, in our mind, in our brain. So first off, I don't think it's a bad thing that people want to get together and celebrate them together. As you started mentioning, yeah, Sarah mentions thin spaces. When you mention all the holy places you visit around the world, I'd love to see these things. They are so deeply meaningful, and because they are held by so many people as holy, there's something very special about being in them, even as an atheist. But it's not because I think there's a God. It's because we as people, I think, are powerful, immensely powerful beings. We don't need to stories of separateness of that which is holy. I think we need to get a grip on the fact that we're being amazing and powerful. And that's why the fucking West Coast is burning down right now. Because we have not accepted responsibility for the fact that this earth is ours. It's the only fucking one we've got. And we got to fix this shit now. So that to me, I think God is an escape from our responsibility. I think pleas to God are misplaced, because we need everything that we are asking of God collectively. We should be turning around and looking at each other and saying, now, how the fuck are we going to make it happen? There's my sermon for the day, y'all.
Nah, it's good. I'm
you went somewhere. Where are you going?
Yeah. I agree. I agree with a lot of that. So when I think about my own experiences,
yeah,
and parts of Jerusalem, Golden Temple, blah blah blah, it wasn't the building itself. It was the energy. It was the human connection. It was people coming together, which is one of the reasons why it's such an important thing for me. It's one of the reasons why when we talk about all the things that are happening now, my context is not just my native Black American context. It's as a native Black American who lived and worked in Africa, who lived and worked in the continent of China and through Europe, and just the scope is just, for me, is just broad, right? And I think that there can be a level of escapism that's there, but I also think it's a little bit egotistical for us to think that we're the center of it. Like I don't think we're any more.
Say more. Say more.
So in your speech, you're saying that we have control, we have some power, we have some level of individualism, of human exceptionalism, in which we could channel different things. I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth, but this is how I took it.
Boiling it down. That's interesting. Yeah.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. What I'm saying is that, again, I'm not a binary person. So I don't want to think that there has to be one entity and then it's like, no, then it's just us as human beings. My thing is, it's probably just bigger and broader than we can contextualize. And I'm cool with saying that.
I love that too, because I think it introduces like all the work that we're doing right now with dolphins or elephants or octopi, like, and we begin the second. So there's this separateness between man and nature is one of the things I rail against also, because that, you're exactly right. It actually creates problems. Our philosophy becomes, when we can look at another human and accuse them of being closer to nature, we dehumanize them, right? I would not want to say exclusively that human animals are the only ones doing this. I'm not sure that we understand whether dolphins might be doing this, or some of the whales, or orangutans. Some of these other creatures on this earth are doing things that we may not understand. And as we widen, I think, oh God, what was the book that TL and I just read? How to Be an Anti-Racist. As he talked about the different ways of knowing, the different ways of wisdom, really, how can we only value one way of wisdom? And of course, in our culture, it's always the white man's way of wisdom, the heterosexual, cisgendered, like let's name the whole damn thing. He's got to be middle class, he's got to be able-bodied, all of that shit. This is the only type of wisdom that's legitimate. The more we start widening our scope, understanding of wisdoms that are legitimate, the more we also start getting into, well, this is beyond humans. Then we start getting into what kind of wisdom do dolphins actually have? What is their intelligence actually like? What is their awareness of self and others? Because we know that these things are happening. I almost said animal kingdom, right? As though we're not part of it with
Right.
other, right? With other
Right.
creatures. Know that this happens. Elephants bury their fucking dead.
And so this is
That's one of the fundamental signs of a human. When we
Mhm,
look for, proto-humans, when we do the research and stuff, one of the ways anthropologists say this was a human is
mhm.
they treated their dead specially. Well, elephants do that too. Like, come on, y'all.
Yeah.
Why are we so unique? I think that's a question worth asking.
Yeah, and that is the premise for me and how I'm approaching these things. And so, you talked about being heterosexual and being male from how things work. To me, I look at that. Yeah, if you look at Europe, and you can't even say all of Europe, I would say Western Europe and Western
Yeah.
culture,
Mhm.
right? But when I start to think about things Mediterranean South and East, my experience, my indigenous experience in these places, and I've had some what's the best way to say it? I've had on the grid experiences, right? And then I've
Nice.
probably had some off the grid experiences that wouldn't be accepted by major society that I probably won't talk about on the show. At least not right now, because I don't want to get turned into different stories.
Rabbit
But
hole.
yeah, exactly. Go down that rabbit hole. Um, that's not even necessarily the case, right? It isn't, their experience, they've been a lot smaller. It hasn't been, this whole male thing where that's
Yeah.
the leadership and so, but they've also been very different. When I was in Nigeria, spent time in Kenya, spending time in South
Mhm.
Africa, um, and other parts of Eastern Madagascar and stuff like that. So, I mean, having these different experiences without us even sharing our oral language,
Yeah.
right? But still feeling and being able to communicate.
Yeah.
And then having experiences like when I was in Peru and parts of Brazil, um, and being able to understand, and this is going to sound crazy, right? But being able to understand animals
Mhm.
and the wind and feel it in different ways. I mean, I'll just be candid. So this is during the ayahuasca ceremony. So my
Yeah.
my first ayahuasca ceremony was in 2007, um, and yeah, it was the knowledge was there, the
Mm.
awareness was there, the consciousness was there, but I also was hyper aware of the major things that existed that just were beyond my comprehension at any
Yeah.
given state.
Nice.
So that's how I look at it, or
Yeah.
I feel it through. And so when people become so fundamental, it's like, okay, so you have the absolute truth for everyone based on these limited experiences. I get confused.
Yeah. So there's actually a couple of comments that relate exactly to what you're saying.
Mm,
Starting uh,
which one?
up with Sunny. The talking dude is kind of faith, but fundamentalism.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Faith is having some understanding and acceptance that divinity is mysterious. Absolutely, yeah. And I would just jump to her. Like, there's several comments where we got to hit a bunch of these. What about theology says we are divine, divinity walking? Because in that case, we are not separate. And she's exactly right. That was the faith that I was preaching before I left ministry and came out as an atheist. I am human, but I am also a child of Obatala, not separate. This is from the diaspora tradition.
Mm,
And her next comment, Western theology specifically separates us. You don't see that in indigenous traditions in the same way. Is your atheist a response to Western thought or across all religions, even those that say, as humans, we are
that
very connected and not separate from God? Which, I
that
mean,
is That's
good question.
interesting. That's interesting because that has been my experience in indigenous. It's
Yep.
very much probably how I show up now, which is in a center. It's very much everything is interconnected. It is
Yeah.
literally an ecosystem. There is no separation. It's it's an expansion. And so
Yeah.
that's why when I mention Mediterranean South and East, there's more. It feels just more holistic to me, which is
Yeah.
why people have asked me, "Hey, what is that in the background?" Where I have a really good friend of mine um, sent this to me. Where's the tree of life? Where you have the chakras down the trunk, right?
Yeah.
That's what I have here. That doesn't necessarily connect with traditional Western.
Well, and there's, I mean, so there's the thing. If chakras help you connect more with who you are and more with the world. I mean, again, like, do I believe that there's magical centers in the body? Not
Mm,
necessarily, but I also studied enough of the chakras and apps. I mean, I was studying chakras when I was dealing with the worst of my depression back in Providence, and it was part of healing for me.
mm.
But I don't attribute it to a god and so there again, I come back to this is not for me a theistic thing. Um, I don't know what role it might have played. I don't know.
Mm.
But so is my atheistic like way of being a response to Western thought? I mean,
That's a great
theism is
question.
so yeah, it is. And I don't really have an answer. Like it's a response to the gods that I have seen constructed through my Western eyes,
Mm.
even as I've done my best to deconstruct them. So from my seat, that's what I'm responding to. And again, it's like we can prove so much about the universe, even when it's like only in the negative. We can take a picture of a black hole, which is literally the absence of things, uh, by constructing the absence of the thing. And not only is there notes for God or gods, but then on top of that, it's the parts of us that are relating, or having religious experiences are not confined to those religious experiences. It
Mm.
starts to me to tell a different story. I'm willing to be wrong on it, but but I think the most important thing that Sonny mentions right there is why the fuck does Western theology, why is it all about us separating from God? That's a fucking power play.
Okay, elaborate on that
And
because
that
you
needs to
you
be
went to
called out.
seminary. You went to
Yeah.
seminary and I'm not a theologian by any means. So
Yeah, you are.
no,
No, if you're
I don't have
talking
any
about
desire to
God
be actually.
or you're thinking about God, you are a theologian. What I'm doing right now, as
Hmm.
we have this conversation, is theology because we're talking about gods or God, whatever, gods, and we're thinking about it. So
So
we're
as a
doing
scientist,
theology.
but so as a scientist who's going through scientific method and theory and thought in relation to God, a theologian as well?
Yeah. The
Hmm.
again, Western thought comes from the Greco tradition of separating shit out into its disparate parts. We're at one time we were separate from the animal kingdom,
Hmm.
right? And you want to parse it down to the little minutia of what species and how do we type these things, and then it's reflected in our academic institutions still, we're
Yes.
colleges, right?
Hmm.
And
Education is that way. Yeah.
right, it's all this segmented crap. Everything is about separation, as though there's some pure essence of a thing that we can get to without all the bits of life in it, which is total bullshit. And again, when we come back to, as you mentioned, the indigenous traditions, the spirit was all a part of it. Like it was a part of you grinding corn or planting something or hunting something, uh,
Hmm.
a house, building a home. It was absolutely integrated into all these things. So
Right.
that separateness is a unique thing, and it's a fucking power play on the part of Western because it doesn't want us I think like this all smells very much. I mean, why is racism a thing? It's a thing because it was a way of controlling people, and that's empire thinking. Uh, eh, why is sexism a thing? Because again, it pits us against each other. So we don't have time to look up the chain and go, wait, that fucker can get away with any of this shit. So, I mean, separateness is the nature of Western culture. It is one of the fundamentals of Western culture.
Yeah.
It doesn't want us to be integrated because then we are controllable.
But you know how triggering that is for everyone right now because everyone wants to be separated right now. Think about that.
Yeah,
Even
you're
the
right.
audience that may gravitate toward
Yeah,
our
you're
show,
right.
people that we know, they
Yep.
might identify with it, but there's still I'm going to double down on my learned identity,
Yeah.
whatever it
Yes.
may be.
Yep.
Um, which is always my dissonance and my struggle with things because yes, I'm human like anybody else. So categories are nice and being able to say this and be able to say that because it makes sense, right? I can put it into place in my brain.
Yeah.
But for actually majority of my life, but now that I'm able to articulate it a little bit more and a little bit more openly at this
Yeah.
point in life, um, that's always felt foreign to me. I've always felt connected, to people, even people who I didn't think or I didn't feel were necessarily of good intent. There was still some level of connection to them.
It's why we stay in abusive relationships,
Mm,
because the pain of being truly and totally alone is destructive to the human animal. Like, it is absolute corrosion on our soul. When when we look at the studies that are being done on prisoners who are put in
yeah.
solitary confinement, right?
Oh yeah.
They literally go fucking nuts, and they were not nuts when they were put in there. It is destructive to the human animal to be alone. We are social animals by nature. We are meant to be connected. That's why, yes, this quarantine has been horrible for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
It's the 2% truth behind people who won't wear masks and won't follow social distancing. The 2% truth is we all know at some level that we have to be connected to other human beings. I mean, that's just who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does that tie into the faith conversation? I mean,
Oh,
I'm asking you
yeah.
a question, but then I'm also thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Our being an executive coach and working in the diversity and inclusion space, it's always interesting because it's like, how do these two things work together? Where we want to
Mhm.
belong, but it has to be a particular tribe. It can't be the collective whole. Because if you start, let's just use this as an example.
Yeah.
If, as a heterosexual Native Black American man, if I start talking about being human right now, there's a large segment of the population that would ostracize that,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And then there's a large segment of the population that uses that as a weapon against the other. So it's like
Yeah.
it's crazy to me, right? When fundamentally, if we really want to be fundamentalists, we understand that to be true. So I get lost in that gray area.
So
Not lost, but just I'm very open to it in conversation, I guess, best way to say it.
there's something really important there that I'm just beginning to really work on this semester. The professor in my feminist theories class, um, she talks a lot about the fact that in the rest of the world, identity politics is a right wing tool. But here in this country, it's seen as a left wing thing. So when you name off your heteronormed Native Black American tradition,
Hmm.
it's these are hallmarks of identity politics.
Hmm.
It's saying that
Hmm.
I have a social position and a set of experiences that go along with these, that are congruent with these bits of identity.
Hmm.
Um, and I think in the rest of the world, like I think the U.S. is fucked up on some things, and this is one of them. Because in order for us to actually be able to say we need equal rights under the law, we have to be able to show how a particular part of us is being separated from those rights, right?
Yep.
Um, and so bluntly, it's because we're a litigious society that this has come about, and that this is seen as a left wing thing. When in fact, you're exactly right, and this is why I think TL's point, where he just is like, I hate both parties. I'm not going to vote for a party. He and I have this conversation all the time, and I think he's right. This is the little picture again. By separating us into Republicans, Democrats, we get pitted against each other in ways that still keep a certain power structure in place. And that,
Mm.
and so that those identity politics things, as much as it's very important right now, especially to reclaim what it means to be Black in America, right? That's the big topic.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Uh, and yes, there's something important and powerful about having communities of affinity and solidarity when a group is being oppressed. Yeah, I totally get that has to happen. I don't necessarily understand it on a soul level, like in my gut, but I see the need for it. Okay. Um,
Well, and what's also interesting to me is how that's embedded in faith and what people believe. Like,
oh yeah.
I noticed that very early on that the church is the most segregated place I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
And
study after study shows that.
it was such a dissonance to me that really wanted to, well, not wanted, I moved away from the indoctrination and said,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to place that here, not wrong or right. It's just in
Yeah.
in a particular place. Now I want to broaden things out. I'm like, this is supposed to be the ultimate place where it doesn't exist, but it's actually perpetuated even more.
Yes.
I don't get it.
Again, I mean, at least as far as Christianity is concerned,
Yeah, I mean that's because that's what I was.
people
Yeah.
people are practicing empire Christianity, which is fundamentally opposed to the Jesus.
Okay, tell me, you're the theologian. You're
Well, no,
seminary.
I'm not.
You're
You're
a seminary
the.
graduate.
Oh, okay.
Let me put it that way.
Okay,
Tell me more
before we
about
get
that. What do you mean?
okay, before we get to that, there's been a bunch more awesome
Yeah.
stuff. So Sunny mentions anyone engaging in theology, the study of God, therefore a theologian by definition. Right. Doesn't always mean it's good theology. I love her point. And she
What's
also
your name?
mentions, and yet,
Oh,
yeah, let's do that one because there's two of them that mention similar things. Religion versus relationship. Religion is controlling your personal relationship with God, is between you and your God. And up above, there was another one that was along similar lines from Rashawn,
oh yeah,
our
that's
guest from a few weeks ago.
right.
Faith at its best is about community and responsibility, and its worst, it's control and pain.
Yep. Wow.
I,
Yeah,
I think
yeah, that's I like that. Faith
that's
at its
good.
best is about community and responsibility. Faith at its worst is control and pain.
And then Sonny's last comment, yet prisoners that is so going back to the notion of solitary confinement, prisoners that have faith and find some sort of connection to God, they fare better. Pain of being alone is great, and yet for folks of faith, we have comfort when we know that the ancestors are a real presence and hold us all the way in every way. And again, there's something interesting. The notion of ancestors comes up again and again for me, as our guest last week mentioned, I want to be a good ancestor to those that come after me.
Mhm.
And that's how she judges, that's how Angela judges her life. I thought, wow, that is really powerful. And it's still something I'm going to definitely, like, I've been thinking about that a lot.
Mhm.
Is that theistic? Well, by definition, no, but it is in the realm of that we often construct as religion. But again, we're back to all the only way this shit is through Western modes of thought, which wants to separate all of this. Well, is that religion or is theology or is that fuck this system, man? And Janine's last comment, unfortunately, the church is made of people who are imperfect. So because of that, there's always going to be imperfections in the church, just like an organization. The problem is Western society has sold the church as being perfect. Nailed it, nailed it, nailed it. That notion of purity and perfection that then comes to its height in capitalism, because we want the best thing. Like that's the point of the market. We're constantly told that that's what the market does. Gives us the best of the things. And it's a fucking lie. But there's a book on my shelf right now. Somebody wants to read this with me. It's called White Too Long, and it traces white supremacy in U.S. religion. So I'm really interested in reading it. But the basic answer to the question that kind of kicked this whole thing off is that Jesus was killed not by Jewish people. He was killed by empire. He was killed by those who wanted power over. And here specifically, we're talking about the Roman Empire.
Okay.
They were the civil authorities. Jewish faith leaders had some kind of relationship with them, just as they had with occupying forces for thousands of years when they weren't the occupying force themselves. My camera's going again.
Keep rolling.
All right, we'll keep rolling. But so Jesus was fundamentally anti-imperial, anti-empire. And what happened later when Constantine converts to Christianity, Emperor Constantine of the Roman Empire, then this religion or this faith, it wasn't a religion at the time necessarily. It was a faith. It was a way of being in the world in relationship with things that were beyond one's like immediate responses. And this is an important thing to note. Studies have shown that the human animal can only store about 200 to 400 names in active recall, meaning there's only about 200 to 400 people that I can actively see their face and immediately, but instinctually pop their name out before I have to think about and recall their name. Does that make sense?
It does.
So we are still in our DNA clan animals. we have a limit, right? And we tend to exceed that limit on our drive from our home to work. We have been in close proximity, typically, to more than our brain can actually recall names for. So we are in a constant state of disconnection. And so then we gravitate toward things to make meaning within that. Gravitate toward our clan or our tribe, something we use that a lot. So yeah, when we look at what the Jesus thing was, it was fundamentally anti-empire that got co-opted by the empire, because that's what empire does. I mean, what happened to the civil rights movement of the 60s? It got co-opted by empire, which is why we're having to fucking do this shit over again, because the real problem is a much bigger system. The same thing happens with religion. It is to empire's strength. It is the empire's strength that we are separated from each other on Sunday morning.
Okay, so we have a whole lot more to talk about on this. I'm gonna keep everybody in suspense on this one so they can tune in when we get the Patreon up, because we're at the end of the show. This is just the beginning. We're definitely going to come back and touch on faith, because
Angela's swinging something cool in now too.
Oh, I saw.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
like, I don't think there's a difference between being a good ancestor and being having a religious perspective. Yep.
Yeah, it really it's interesting, because why should they be separate? Why should thinking about how we interact across generationally, why should that necessarily be a religious thing? It doesn't have to be. But when you study world religions, one of the things you'll look at is ancestor worship.
I've experienced it firsthand. I have many a story around my own ancestors, and I know at least in 2 instances how I've died, killed. I've experienced it, so I get it. It's not something I talk about a whole lot, just because I don't. A lot of times people don't have the capacity to even want to hear it, really, because once it brushes up against indoctrination, there's not a whole lot of listening that's actually happening. So I don't share a whole lot of it, but yeah, I get it.
So what's there? There's something there that you're dancing around. What did that mean to you? That experience.
My own death experiences, or
Sure,
ancestral. Boy. Well, it confirms, it's one of the things that I do believe is just an energy transfer, good, bad, or, whatever polarizing way you want to describe it. And so in the spirit, or the energy of the spirit, doesn't necessarily die as we think it dies and it goes up or down or left or right. It's transition to other things, other areas. And when I say things, not even beyond the dimensions that we understand. And so being able to go back and actually feel the experience of death. Well, one was, so I was killed in a forest, hunted down by wolves and eaten alive. Yeah. And having, like, you experience it, you can feel it, you can see it. It changed, and it's real. It's just as real as this conversation that we're having right now, but it's not necessarily in this human form. So that's powerful, but it doesn't, my point is, it doesn't align to what, at least in Western culture, and what I had experienced to, which that I'm supposed to identify with, something that can't be real. It happens in another world, or, it's a dream or something like that. Those things don't align. So when you start to talk to people about stuff like that, the dialogue or the conversation, or even the openness, goes away, because it's not rooted in their baseline of, this book or this scripture, or, this, whatever this other human being wrote and was translated by many other people, is the only truth. And if you don't believe what I believe, you're wrong. I don't get it.
And I mean, at that point, the empire has had its way, because it has because in that moment, religion was used by the empire to separate us. And that, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So for you who want to know what this show is about, it may have taken us a while today, but that right there was a moment of vulnerability. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's sharing the stuff of conversations that we don't have every day, but that we got to do more of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of comments here that I think we like.
All right.
Angela's
Well,
popping
she has a
off.
lot.
Like,
Yeah,
Angela and
she's going
Sunny are
in.
going
Oh,
here.
I got this one. So she said she's agreed. What else did she say?
Y'all got me over here thinking I had to pull over from driving. Yay, it's working.
Oh, need a part 2 of the show. Oh, we definitely we're gonna have a bunch on faith. Yeah, because we haven't even gotten to, you know, for you specifically, like this transition. That's a huge thing to go to seminary, to have these beliefs, and then say, no, I don't, or at least to put it in the category of, okay, now I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
You know, and then I identify as agnostic, like I don't know. You know, because
well, in the end, too, why do we have to have labels for this shit?
well, you know, that's always my question, bro.
Yeah,
With everything,
I mean, always
right?
worth.
But
Sunny,
but I believe in meeting people where they are too, and a lot of people need kind of a category. You know, they want to
Yep.
put you in a category.
We've been trained to think that we do. We don't actually need them. There's nothing essentially human about having categories for everything. And Sunny's notes too that things don't have to be this way at all. It's a way of life, a way of being. You can be both and either or. It's linked for me, given my experience of a priestess. And Torian, she also mentions you specifically. Definitely a real experience. I died in a past life at the hands of the Catholic Church for healing folks with Jesus and herbs. Like this, by the way, first off, that's the kind of seminary that I went to with the kind of folks that, that I studied. Or just genuine badasses who go way beyond the fucking box that Western religion is often put in. So, like, yeah, amazing, incredible people. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we appreciate those comments and stuff too. So you and I are going to continue this conversation. And then we're going to come back because we will have another show around this. I mean, we just scratched the surface around faith, what we believe, and then how do we tie that into our listeners and how they connect to being vulnerable and what that means. So we're going to come back to that. No question. Make sure you tune in next week. And with that, we're going to end this broadcast, and then you and I are going to come back. All right.